Alrighty, friends. So the rapier and ice build. It has definitely been a journey for this build, but I think I finally got it back into a place to where this build is feeling honestly even stronger than it was before. And we are going to talk about the changes that I've made for it today because I made quite a few. If you have caught the stream, then you probably have seen most of what I've done to it. But now that I kind of have the time to kind of sit, I'll kind of give you all my full thoughts on the build and my thoughts behind the changes behind it. But yeah, this has been a rough journey for this build indeed. We have gone through some pretty interesting changes. The build was based around Ultimate Chill, so landing a either spike, ice storm, or ice shower hit to then proc the chill, and then buffing our ice gem damage on our rapier was really what the build was based around. And then also using the utility of the ice gauntlet to keep us alive and keep us defensive. But back in Brimstone, if you aren't aware, they made a change to this ability to where previously you were able to buff another user's ice gem without them having a ice gauntlet on, and they wanted to make it to where only a ice gauntlet user can buff their own ice damage. They didn't say anything about it not working with your other weapon, but since the Brimstone patch, this has been broken and not working. Not only for ice gems, but I've even noticed for my own ice gauntlet abilities and ice gauntlet damage, it doesn't even work all the time. So this, I'm pretty much done waiting for this passive or ultimate to be fixed, and it was time to make some changes to the build because it has been getting weaker and weaker over time. But I have gotten it pretty much back to feeling like the old rapier parry backstab damage. Not only the backstab damage, but the damage overall on the build is way more than we had by trying to find burst opportunities through our chill. Now, just to give you guys a little bit of a idea of what the build looks like before we go through the entire build, we had a little clip from an OPR today where we got into a little bit of a 3v1 during a match, but we have the medium sword and shield player kind of trying to chase us down, land a beautiful riposte into the storm, and you can see that chunky backstab again. So lovely to have that damage, but we just absolutely burst that medium armor player, almost kill him outright. He walks back into the heavy again. We throw out just another huge heavy, burst both players in the middle of that skirmish, and because I had my stone form up, we were able to sustain it, land another riposte on the cyclone, and just get rid of the heavy, or the medium, excuse me, in that last heavy. Switch my attention over to the spear player, but there is a healer, so I need to figure out how I'm going to take this fight, but I'm probably going to end up switching to the healer as I can probably end up kiting this player here. So I switch my attention over to the healer. We go for a flesh, and you can see right there just how much damage it does now. Just a couple of backstabs into the heavy, and it is absolutely lights out for that healer. And then we actually do end up landing a pretty nice riposte on the spirit player as well. But with my luck, we actually end up getting run over by the spawn wave. But yeah, as you can see, the damage is feeling pretty crazy now. And the build is actually back to feeling to its original identity, which was definitely a much slower and less aggressive version of our rapier and fire staff build, but much more precise and hard hitting when we do find those attacks. And then as you can also tell, we've also dropped spike. So what have I changed? I made quite a few changes around. The thing that I was trying to do was figure out stat wise and ability wise how we can kind of flip the build to make up for ultimate chill. I had originally tried a more int heavy setup and actually dropped some decks to see if I can get my spikes to be hitting harder, but spike within itself is just, well, don't get me wrong, it's my baby and one of my favorite abilities on the build, but the current climate of the game and our stat setup and ultimate chill and what we were trying to accomplish with the build, it just wasn't continually working out for us, because even back when this passive was working, I was never ever using Ice Spike as a execute or a damage ability. It was solely used as a method of applying chill. But ever since this passive has been broken, it has put even more pressure on this ability and it landing, to where if we don't land the full Mighty Spike part of the ability and get a giant crit and chunk somebody's health, the ability ends up being very, very, very useless. Versus before, all we had to do is get a hit, whether it was a stagger or even these side spikes that came out, because any part of the ability that hit would apply the chill, which would then buff our damage. So I had to make a pretty tough decision on whether or not I wanted to keep using Spike, and I ended up dropping Spike for Shower. And as you saw in that little clip there, it does a very, very, very good job at allowing us to pretty much stay alive and play into the Ice Gauntlet's theme much, much more, which is CC, utility, control, and we can dance around in fights a lot better, especially when there's multiple melee opponents on us. But the really, really big change that I had made to the build was the stats. So we've actually switched from our stats that we've been running for pretty much the entire game, which was 150 dex, 200 int, and then 150 con. And I made a change to go for that 200 dex passive. And that's how we are hitting so hard now with our rapier. Not only is our damage, our actual damage value of the rapier higher, we now have this backstab perk, which will help our riposte's backstab damage. But because we have more scaling into the rapier, it actually is making the Officer's Ceremony and this playstyle and this build with this stat setup the perfect pairing, because penetrating backstabs with having these damage perks, as you saw, not only when we land a stun, but all of our damage consistently, as you'll see, is just way, way higher on the build. Now, the only thing that you have to be aware of, the only thing we lost was that 200 int passive. So we no longer have the means to continually sustain our mana, but honestly, it's not even that bad, because we have methods of gaining mana back. We are not using mana that often because we're not using lights and heavies as often as the Fire Staff, for example. And then on top of the changes that we've made to getting more damage on our rapier and adding Ice Shower to the build, we just have even more utility overall, because we now have more passives on the builder side. So I already had blocking stamina, but we have quick frost, which I never had before, which is actually massive for all situations in PvP. As you know, movement speed is a really, really important thing to have. Empowered frost is another way that we can kind of sustain a little bit, but we honestly don't even really need it. And then refreshing frost, because we aren't running any refreshing or any cooldown reduction on the build. If we ever are in those situations where we have to use multiple abilities at once, we at least get some value back for having to do that. And then we also still have Defiant Freeze. So this is the setup that I am running now on the Ice Gauntlet. On the Rapier, it is the traditional riposte Grace setup with full evade, full riposte, full flesh, swiftness, red curtains, controlled breathing, and then on guard and refreshing strikes. And then gear-wise, I actually have been making changes pretty much all throughout Season 1, and even more so now with Season 2. I haven't given you guys an update on that, but this is what my current gear is looking like right now. If you last remember, we were kind of trying our freedom, but I've gone more back to focusing on our weapon perks. We had taken off Unending Thaw, which is actually one of the most important perks for this build, because you rarely are ever able to land that heavy while people are still in the ice storm, unless they're literally stunned or fighting somebody else and not paying attention. So Unending Thaw is the thing that allows you to actually land that root on people. So we are running Resilient Unending Thaw with the Frost Gem, critical retribution, physical aversion, and resilience with no rune glass gem. And the critical retribution there, or the idea behind that, is to make up or just to add more consistent DPS to the build. Because we are running a rapier that doesn't have keen, we do have keen awareness on our ring, but I wanted to just get even more crit because we had a free slot. So yeah, we got a pretty nice piece off the market to give us physical aversion for some more damage reduction from bows. On the chest piece, we are running omnidirectional evade, sturdy energy, which is also a whole nother thing, which I'll get into in a second here, because this patch as well has made this build also even stronger than it's been. But with the rune glass gem in that as well, we've looked at the gloves, the legs, pretty much any shirking energy piece that you can get is fine. The theme that I'm trying to play into the build is a tankier version of my rapier firestaff build. So any perks that help with me being tanky or sustainable, or anything that lets me cleanse or anything like that, are perks that we're looking for. So we managed to find this, I can't remember how long ago, that had vigor on it. On our boots, we're running just Sundering Riposte and Resilient with that frozen gem. Got a pretty nice amulet that has Shirking Dot Cleanse. So Shirking Dot Cleanse combined with Vigor, combined with Purifying Toast on our earring, and then the fact that we can cleanse with Entomb, all of these things kind of play into what keep us tanky and healthy and able to stay alive and fight so long. Yeah, that's the amulets. We also have Thrust Protection on there as well, which is pretty huge. We are running the Champion's Ring because I am now running one of the higher damage setups for Rapier. Invigorating Punishment is actually super powerful on this build because of the fact that we do so much more damage. So you're going to start seeing in some of these clips, even our flesh that we do through opponents is doing so much more damage now. So yeah, Invigorated Punishment is really nice. I do want to do some testing with an Ice Damage Ring to see how that compares, but yeah, we are running this, and then Refreshing Toast, Nimble, and Purifying Toast. And then for the weapons, as I mentioned, Officer's Ceremony is definitely the rapier for this build. For a while, it was kind of, you can use whatever, honestly, that has damage, but this definitely is now, I feel like, the rapier for the build. And then we are actually not running a rune glass gem in our rapier, and the reasoning behind that is ever since the Firestaff has gotten buffed, people have obviously been running more fire resist in their gear, but what that means is you are now limited to how many things you can buff. You are literally unable to get enough thrust damage resistance, fire damage resistance, slash, and then ice, right? Like, it's very difficult to gem up for 4 different types of damage in this game. So what 99% of people do in this game is they will kind of build towards the top 3, which is thrust, slash, and fire, because those are the most popular types of damage, which in turn leaves open ice damage to do a lot of damage. Because Ice Gauntlet isn't the Ice Gauntlet that it used to be, people just aren't as afraid of it. They aren't gemming for it. So what that ends up doing is it allows our damage to be even higher because of how much ice damage we can do. So kind of pay attention to that during the PvP clips, because every single hit we are doing a considerable more amount of frost damage than we are thrust damage. And then the same Ice Gauntlet, we are running Gripping Rhyme with that Rune Glass dot in there. I am still running Stone Form, but I do want to pick up Dark Ascent to do some testing with that. But honestly, Stone Form or anything else that you feel like you could put into the build is going to be fine. But yeah, that is the update for this build. I'm sorry it took so long, but I didn't want to leave anything out. But with all of that out of the way, let's take a look at how this build is now feeling. So OPRs and open world especially have been just incredibly laggy. So we don't have any footage from those today, but that is actually okay because we got the new arena map to take a look at. But very quickly before we jump into this footage here, the thing that I didn't really mention is the reason why the officer ceremony is such a good match for this build and my new ability or attribute setup is because of that penetrating backstabs perk. With the new stat setup, we now have the base damage to pretty much straight up bully other light armor builds because of how much damage we are doing. Not only with our regular attacks that are non-backstab, but especially our backstab damage. And then because of that penetrating backstabs perk, it just scales and gives us even more value with more and more armor that the target has. So as you saw, with medium armor targets, we are still able to burst them, and they still feel like we're fighting a light armor player. And then even with heavy armor, we're not going to be doing damage to their health as quickly as the other two armor types, but it is nowhere near as similar as the fights as we've been having with our other builds, which is a sluggish, everybody beating down on the heavy until he dies, because this perk gives you a ton of value. But yeah, let's jump into some of this footage. But yeah, jumping into this match here, we have a team of pretty tanky bruisers, which is a pretty good composition to test this build against. And right away, we're going to open up with the Storm and all pretty much just jump into a brawl. All three of them go for our teammates, but with their back exposed, you can see just how much damage we're able to put in. Almost finish off that spear target, and we jump off the side, and with a couple of attacks, we're able to find that kill. Just putting an insane amount of damage because of his back being exposed, which you definitely don't want to do on this build. But we land the riposte in the ice shower. Again, frozen there, not being able to move, just put in a disgusting amount of damage. It's just absolutely ridiculous now, and we're able to pretty much quickly finish off that first opponent and get a pretty clean win here. But it isn't going to be that easy the whole match. But yeah, as you can see, this build really plays into that armor pen type of archetype or build or class in games, which I'm really enjoying. But jumping into the second round, instead of running down the middle, I decided to go ahead and try to go for a flank, and it looks like one of the enemy players has decided to do the same. And we get into a little bit of a scrap here, but he decides to kind of run away and see if he can make some space. We block that heavy or the range attack with our riposte, and then we do end up getting some help from our friend Jeepo here as he throws in a spike, as I get some time to regenerate our health as we jump into the entomb there. But not able to find an opening yet. He is doing a pretty good job of hopping around and iframing a lot of our damage. But we're both on him, and with that ice storm and those couple of backstabs that is in the air, you see just how much damage we're able to do in just a couple of attacks. Get him very low, but we end up joining the fight with the rest of the team. As you can see, just a flash and a couple of attacks out of the evade, and that opponent is done for. I try to roll ahead of these two opponents and get a ice shower in front of them just to see if I can save our teammate there. But this opponent does do a good job of avoiding it, as we only trap one, but he played way too aggressively there, as we're able to pick up that kill as a team. And then we're going to be able to finish off the final opponent as 3. But yeah, that's the thing that I've been enjoying super much about this build. With the fire and rapier build, the situation you do not want to get into with me on that build is trading with me in melee range, because we have that 2-hit evade. But with this build, it is, you definitely do not want to leave your back exposed, because you will feel it. But we jump into the middle again. This time we actually mitigate a lot of that damage with the block there on our ice gauntlet, but we still are pretty low. I do a good job of avoiding that sweep, but we get jumped on by 2 of the players. I get pretty low, so I'm kind of forced to pop my storm for him. I throw out the shower there, and I do get one caught in there. Throw out the flesh, get in a couple of backstabs there, and I have that opponent very low. But I'm playing very aggressive to try to finish off that kill, and I almost die for it there, so I'm forced to kind of jump into my entomb and jump off the edge there. And 2 opponents end up following me off. I throw out the storm. I am actually putting in a lot of damage into that one opponent there, but we actually end up getting into a terrible situation there. We got slowed by the sword and shield, got the slow applied to us, and then we rolled ourselves out of stamina with no cooldowns up. So almost able to finish off both of those players there. You saw the damage, but that is the other thing about this build and just light armor builds in general, is you really have to play it perfectly, because any mistake you make, especially with how much damage everybody is doing now, if you get caught in any form of CC chain, is pretty much death for you. But we jump into the third round, which is match point for us here, or the fourth, excuse me. We get hit by a javelin right away, shockwaved, stunned. As I'm falling, stunned again. Off the stun, we get swept into the cyclone. Out of the cyclone, I do manage to get a second of breathing room, but they are on my trail. I'm forced to kind of get away from that first opponent on me, and I try to put some damage into that opponent that I had trapped into the shower, but just a ridiculous CC chain there. Like, we got javelins into the stagger from the attacks from both opponents. While falling, we get stunned, and then out of the stun, we get swept. Just a super unfortunate series of events, and the enemy team is actually able to bring it back here. As I mentioned, it was not going to be a free win, so match point for both of us here, and we need to pull out this win here. That initial fight in the middle of the ring is definitely the make or break situation for matches I've noticed on this map. But the javelin comes out very early this time, so we don't have to worry about that, and they aren't pushing as hard. We throw out the storm, I go for the flush, put in a lot of backstab damage into this first spear player. It looks like they put into a bunch of damage into both of our teammates as well. Looks like Jeepo is forced to jump off the side, but we land a parry and a bunch of damage into one of the targets who is left up on the top here. We jump down, he pops a storm form, but we are able to keep up onto him with the mobility of our build. It does make it away, but I do throw out a storm just to apply some CC to all of them. It looks like Jeepo does go down, so it is left up to the two of us here. And I get caught with the just tail end of that storm there. So very close. It looks like my teammate is also under a lot of pressure. I'm trying to see if I can give him a hand, but we have two on us as well. But you can see just how strong this combo is there. This Ice Storm forces the opponents apart. I use that opening to put in just a ridiculous amount of damage. We meet back up with our teammate. He finds the kill with me to put in the damage on that second opponent that I had low, and then it's now just left to a 2v1. I'm actually been enjoying this ability setup so much because of how much control it gives you in fights. Everybody is fully aware of how annoying and powerful Ice Shower is, and I haven't used it in a long time, so I genuinely forgot how much control it gives you in fights. We throw it out, the one tank tries to kind of bail around it, and because he has zero mobility in his build, it takes him more time than he thinks it would take me to kill his friend. And we're able to pick up that kill. But very fun match there, and we're going to take a look at another one here with Astro. I mentioned during the build video portion about Sturdy, and just to go back to that, the ability to block range attacks this patch is what actually made this build so strong, because it made up for one of our biggest weaknesses, which was range damage, right? So now that we have the fact or the ability to block both melee and ranged with the enhanced block from the Ice Gauntlet, that's where Sturdy comes in, and it's less so in arena matches because it's so fast paced, but it is definitely something that you can now put into your arsenal of things to use. But jumping into this match, it looks like instead of it being a bunch of Brugers, we got a bunch of light armor, ranged, and thrust builds. And starting it out right away, we just get into a big scrap. All of us end up jumping out the middle because of how much damage we all do to each other. But I land a parry, and we just land the most disgusting combo on that player. Please go back and actually just look at the damage that I did, because that was a non-crit, non-backstab. So yeah, this build is just feeling absolutely disgusting. You can see my reaction there in chat. The duo with Ice and Void is going to be even stronger than before, but a very quick round there as we kind of make quick work of everybody as we land the parry. But jumping into the second round here, We, instead of running into the middle, we try to see what we can make happen on the bottom side of the map. I see if I can go for the musket player first, just so we don't have a musket free shooting us the entire time. Instead of going for me, he does end up looking for the lower health target, and I'm trying to see what I can do to keep a hand on him. I do end up landing a really nice counter parry on his parry, and getting very low, but we do end up getting jumped on by one of his teammates, so I just turn and throw a pretty quick ice shower. And with all light builds, it's just a crazy fast action-paced match right now, but we all end up kind of switching to the bow player who's left on the bottom, and he's not able to get away from all the pressure. And again, you can see how much damage we do to those light armor targets as we take him out, but we are very low as his remaining two teammates have jumped onto us as they turn their attention to us after we take out their teammate. And just as fast as we're able to take out people on this build, we get taken out by the double range there. Definitely a tough matchup. The musket makes things very tough for just a ranged decks in general, because their goal is always to just kind of sit for free and get shots in. So my focus is going to try to be Phoenix if I can get him. And you can see right away, I see him bailing to the left, so we go and follow to see if I can pick up this musket. And it looks like he does actually see me on the way and kind of bails right away. And his two teammates are right there to put in a bunch of damage, and I'm forced to use the Entomb already to heal up back that damage. Trying to avoid the blunderbuss on our back, but the Fireside player is kind of just ignoring us right now. I kind of missed my opportunity to put in a lot of damage there, as I kind of rolled expecting him to keep rolling, but he just stood there and casted the meteor shower, so definitely could have landed quite a bit of damage right there. But we all kind of disengaged for a second here and look for another opening, because as I mentioned, those light versus light arenas are just an absolute brawl. But we do end up getting jumped on by one of the rapier players and find a parry during that flurry. All three of us see that opening and try to look for the kill. I get very low as I get staggered off that Dark Ascent, but I'm just barely able to survive and keep myself up. But I do get jumped on, keep myself alive with that health potion. Our teammate picks up a kill, so we're in a very good spot. We actually get counter parry this time, as the musket player lands a pretty nice hit there. I am out of stamina, but we are playing aggressive, and through the stamina drain, they were able to just pick up that kill because we were able to use the movement from evade, and then our teammates were able to pick up a kill as well. So very clean third round there. Match point for us, but we're gonna have to play it very clean if we want to win it here. As you saw earlier as well, one of the players on the enemy team is pretty difficult to land attacks on. I don't know if it's the game or lag or what it is. So we're gonna again try to focus that musket player if we can. I throw out the storm as they take a position back there on the ramp, and the storm kind of forces them away from their fortified position, but they both focus their attention to me, which again forces me into that entomb. But they push and kind of overextend a little bit, which allows me to land that shower. Our teammate does go down, and I almost am able to pick up that kill, but in a very bad situation with all three opponents on us here. And I'm able to stay alive for a little bit, but it is a matter of time before we end up going down if we choose to stay there. And then it's going to be left to a 3v1 against our opponent, or against our teammate, excuse me. So just like last match, it's going to be a very close match. I've actually been thoroughly enjoying this map just because of the diversity of builds and the gameplay it allows. So many of the matches that I've played have gone to the last round because it's not just a complete stomp against flamethrowers anymore, but it's match point for both of us here. Jumping into the last round, we all kind of make our way over to the left side of the map here. I tell Astro to see if we can play around our teammates because we seemingly keep getting separated, and I see them go up the stairs, so I try to look for an opening as well. With the blunderbuss burst, we find a ton of damage. Astro's able to follow up on our combo as well, and then our teammate is able to find a kill. Beautiful synergy there with our teammates finding that damage. We're able to actually avoid the stagger there, but I'm not able to find the parry on the flourish and finish there. I am forced to jump off, but I'm going to see if I can go ahead and help Astro and take out this musket because he is actually doing a ton of damage. He gets Astro low, which makes him play over aggressive, and then we're able to pick up that kill as he doesn't see me coming up. But another very fun arena match, and we're gonna take a look at one more clip from an arena, because with the ability changes, and the stat changes, we're back to being able to do what we used to be able to do on the build, which was our bread and butter, which was break into those tough formations, stay alive, and create openings for a team with all of our CC. So you can see these guys have a pretty tough setup here in the middle. We've got a flame staff, a bow, and a pylon just keeping us at bay, but I'm just gonna go ahead, beeline it in, jump right in with the flush. We do a good job of evading through and making it to the back line. We're able to land the shower and create an opening for our team, and then use the entomb to keep ourselves alive, and we find the kill on the opponent there. One of my favorite things to do on this build back in the day, which was break into formations like that, and then create openings for our team, which was just beautifully done there, and I've been having a blast doing it on the build. But that is going to be all. If you've made it this far, thank you so much. If you have any questions at all, excuse me, please let me know in the comments. But as always, thank you all so much for watching, and have a great day.